reprogramming your subconscious and attitude. So, this whole idea of trying smarter, not harder, right? Like, I put this picture of a fly because have you ever seen a fly that's like trapped in the house and it sees the window and it wants to get to the outside so bad. And it is just darting at the window, trying every single angle at the window because it sees the outside, it knows it's the outside, and it's just trying so hard to get to that outside through that window when 2 feet next to it, the screen is wide open. The screen door is wide open, and this little fly is trying as hard as it possibly can to get outside through that window. We've all seen that. And that's the concept of like trying harder, not smarter. Because most people try to double their efforts to overcome the resistance they feel inside. The resistance that we talked about, those emotions that we talked about yesterday of feeling that resistance, that inner tension. It's like, okay, I got to double down. I got to do this. And trying harder and putting all your effort and all your force into it isn't always the solution to achieving more. Because we get in this cycle where we try as hard as we can. We put all our efforts forward and we just go at that window, right? We're that little fly. We just go at that window. And then all of a sudden we blame ourselves because like, okay, we didn't have enough willpower. I didn't try hard enough, or even blaming other people. Like, well, if this person didn't do that, or like if I didn't have to take care of my kids, or if like my husband didn't want to get pizza every single night, like, and even chalk it up to like bad luck or like, oh, it's just like my genes. Like, what can I do about it? Or bad karma or whatever, what have you. We get into these cycles because we're trying harder, but we're not trying smarter. So I love this quote. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. This is a quote from, I'm not even sure who this is. I found this in a book, Joanne Wolfgang von Gauth. Like, I really don't know who this is, but this is a great, great quote. And I love this. And it really comes back to that full picture of just because you know something, just because you know that knowledge doesn't really mean anything. You have to apply it. You have to practice it. You have to do it. And you can't just will something. You can't just have that willpower. You can't just try that, like going full force at something, right? It's not enough. You have to actually implement these things and these strategies in a way that's going to work for you. So we have this old paradigm of overcoming obstacles. In society, most people, when they think about like overcoming obstacles from like sheer willpower and effort, think of the picture. And I always, always, always come back to this when I think of this, is if you've ever seen the movie Rocky, the scene where he's running through the streets and he's just, starting to run, and all of a sudden, like everyone's like clapping, they're looking at him, people like cheer, like, yeah, go, come on, go, Rocky. Like the kids start following him and they're like cheering him on. He starts like sprinting, running wicked fast. He runs up the steps and like, yeah, yeah. And it's like, that is what we think of like overcoming obstacles. Like, yeah, let's get it. Like, that's going to be this like image that we have in our mind, right? Like, I don't know about you, but like if I go on a run, I'm like, oh my God, like people are going to be following me. Like everyone's going to be cheering me on. Like, I'm so amazing, right? Because we have that old paradigm of thinking where it's like getting over obstacles, like getting over these things, like getting through these hard times, like for this like sheer willpower and this effort and this grit that you're putting through. It's really a myth. It's not real. Sports performances and things that are, Hollywood pictures, like they are stories that are sold to us. That is not reality. That is not real life. Like, yes, there are instances like, like again, like a situation like the Olympics where it's like, oh my God, it's like this amazing sports story, this like amazing story that happens. But that's just one, 1 percent, 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 1 picture or one point in that person's entire picture of like what it took to get them there is the real story, right? Like not them winning, right? Because if they didn't do all the things that they did before, all the mundane, boring things that they did before to prepare, to practice, to get to that point, then they would have never been in that situation, right? They would have never been able to do what they did, what we deem so amazing, right? Like they didn't just like have this willpower and effort. They put in practical strategies to train for that. Because the reality is that we are always faced with these self-defeating behaviors, these habits, these thoughts, and they're not the same situations, right? Like we're not Rocky. That's not real. That's a great story and we love it and it's inspirational and it gives you that pumped up feeling, but like that's not real life. That's not reality. That's not how things work. Because habitual thoughts and habits and behaviors do not change with effort and willpower. When you focus on this type of strategy, when you focus on being that fly, like, I'm going to get outside, 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 it becomes the problem. That becomes the problem. So when you're in this old type of paradigm, and there's a story of, somebody who was drunk and they're standing under a streetlight, they lost their keys and they're standing under a streetlight and their car is kind of like down the road and they're just searching under the streetlight. They're searching, they're looking, and a passerby comes and is like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, what are you looking for? And he was like, well, I'm looking for my keys. And the guy was like, oh, like, well, where did you drop them? He goes, oh, down the street. And he was like, and the passerby goes, well, then why are you looking over here? And he said, well, because the light's better over here. Right? That's most of us. Like, well, the light's better over here. So I'm going to look for the keys here when I drop them actually down the street, or when I know something is better for me is down that way. But let me just look for it here. Let me just put that effort. Let me just put that, willpower in full force, like where I think it's convenient, and we can't think our way through these problems. That's the biggest thing. In every single person, we have two minds. We have the conscious mind, which is what most people over-identify with. So when you say statements that have like I feel this, or I feel that, or I think this, or I think that, or I'm this way, I'm that way, what have you. When you have these statements in your head that start with the word I, or you're saying I a lot, that is you identifying with your conscious mind. And then we have our subconscious mind. And really what our subconscious mind is like a hard drive in a computer. And these are our subconscious mind, are patterns, are things that we do not realize are even happening, things that are working in the background. And often they have a lot of outdated programs, outdated patterns, things that we just learn. Like, oh, I just do this way, or I just do this thing because like it's the way that I've always done it. It's just the way that you learn to do it. And it's helpful to think of your subconscious mind like a well-meaning misguided friend. Like you all know those types of people who they're just trying their best to help. They're like, oh, well, let me come over and I'll help you organize. And like they come over to your room, they're helping you like clean up, and it's like they're putting everything in the wrong place. And like you're just like, oh my God, like just nope, no, can you actually I'm good. I'm done. Like we don't need any help anymore. Get out. Like, you're just like, oh my God, like I know that you're coming from a great place and you're trying so hard to help me, but like you're just making everything worse. And our subconscious mind is always just trying to do what it thinks is best for us. It's like, okay, like I'm going to help. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because this is what I know. This is our pattern. So like, let's just revert to this. That's what the subconscious mind is. And when you're trying to achieve a goal, any goal in life, whether it's weight loss, whether it's behavior change, whether it's, what have you, like just be happy, right? Any goal, you have to have these both minds in agreement with each other. So thinking of the example of having a goal of being happy, this is a conscious goal. So it's like, hey, in life, my goal is to be happy. But if you don't define what happiness is for you, your subconscious has like no way of knowing how to achieve that goal. It's like, what is happiness to me? Like, does it mean success? Does it mean, climbing a corporate ladder? Does it mean having a family? Does it mean being very rich? Does it mean having a big house? Does it mean having a lot of cars? Like, what is happy to you? If you don't properly define that, then your subconscious can't help you get there. So you'll always be like, well, I want to be happy. I want to be happy. I want to be happy, but I'm self-sabotaging myself. Like, I'm not doing the things that are making me happy because your subconscious is like, well, yo, dude, like, well, what is it that makes you happy? Like, what is happiness to you? You have to clearly define that for the subconscious. So, our conscious mind, this is how it works. It is volitional. Actually, I don't know if I'm saying that word right, but volitional. And what it does is this means that it set goals, it judges your results. So, like, I'm happy. I'm not like, my goal is to be happy. This is not making me happy, right? Like, it sets the goal and it judges the result. Like, I want to lose weight. Okay, I didn't lose weight. So, like, blank. It thinks abstractly. So it likes new creative ideas and activities. It's very time bound. So it's past and future focused. It often looks for new ways to do things based off of past experience and future goals. So it's like, hey, this is what I know from my past. These are patterns, and this is kind of the goal that I want to go towards. So, like, let's just focus on the past, bring me to the future. And it has a short-term memory. So about 20 seconds in average for a human person. And your conscious mind is that first 20 seconds of anything. It has a very limited processing capacity. So it processes an average of 40 bits of information per second. And it's capable of managing just a few tasks at a time. It can't be doing a lot of things. But what is interesting is like 5% of our day, we are using our creative wishes, desires, and that like desired conscious type of mind. We're 5% of the day, we are doing what we want to do. We're in this state of like this conscious mind, this abstract, this creativity, this setting goals, this judging. You're going to want to think of your conscious mind as like the driver of the car. So it's like, okay, I have the map. I know where I want to go. Let's get to it, right? It's like the driver inside of a car, bringing you to the direction where you want to go. And then you have your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is habitual. So it monitors the operation of the body, including motor functions, heart rate, respiration, digestion, right? These are things that are just happening in the background. Like, you don't have to consciously know to digest your food. Your body just does it. That's your conscious mind. It thinks literally. So it knows the world through the 5 senses. It's like, what do I see? What do I hear? What do I feel? What do I taste? And what do I smell? I just had to close the window because it was getting loud outside. But so our subconscious mind thinks literally. It knows the world through those 5 senses. So when you're seeing something, when you're hearing something, when you're feeling, tasting, smelling, that's your subconscious mind taking that stimuli inside of you. And our subconscious has long-term memory. So it stores past experiences, past attitudes about things, your values, your beliefs. That's where it comes from. And it's timeless. It focuses just in the present time only. Doesn't think about the past, doesn't think about the future, just thinks about present. What it does is it uses past experiences to perform current functions. So whatever you learned in the past, it performs based off of that pattern, based off of that program, such as like walking, talking, driving a car. Outside of like extreme circumstances, you never have to relearn these things. You never have to relearn how to walk, right? Again, of course, there are situations where you might, but we're talking about like in a healthy everyday body, you learn how to walk and you know how to walk. Every single day you get up and you never have to go, oh wait, how do I do this again? You just know how to do it. And that's your subconscious mind. And it has a very expanded processing capacity. So it processes an average of 40 million bits of information per second. and it can handle thousands of tasks simultaneously. Your subconscious mind is always receiving every single thing that's happening in your environment and taking it into perspective. It's always like, just every single stimuli, every single thing that's happening, it is going in your subconscious mind. So 95% of your day, right? Like I said, 5% of your day is in the conscious mind. You're like, hey, I'm aware, I'm in control, I'm doing this. But 95% of your day, you're running on patterned programs. You're running on things like, what do we default to doing, right? Thinking of the conscious mind. What do I want to be doing versus, and that's 5% of the day. You are thinking of you are in that space of like, what do I want to do? 95% of the day, you're in this space of what do I default to doing? What are my learned patterns? So you're going to want to think of this as our subconscious is a very internal job. When we stay stuck in these thoughts, when we stay stuck in this kind of cycle, we render control. When we're in our subconscious mind, we render control of the driver, right? The driver's like, hey, I want to get to, from point A to point B. And the subconscious is the car. It's like, well, we don't have any gas, so we're not going anywhere. Or like it's driving along and all of a sudden just like, the engine blows out or the tire pops. And it's like, what the heck's going on, right? That's the subconscious. Like, yeah, I know you want to get there really bad, but, this is all I know to do. So and these are when we think about that situation of having your subconscious be 95% of your day and patterns that you rely on. This is where we come to these limiting beliefs. This is what we call those limiting beliefs. These are the things that we think of, or these are the things that are coming to the surface when we're in that cycle of like self-sabotaging ourselves. You're not self-sabotaging anything. You are bumping up against your limiting belief. So limiting beliefs are like building blocks of your personality. Things that you believe affect your self-esteem, your prosperity, your relationships, job performance, spiritual outlook, mental and physical health, right? It's basically how you show up in the world. What you believe is how you show up in the world. And these are operating software. It's helpful to think of them as like operating software in your personal computer, right? You have a personal computer, your limiting beliefs like run the show. Why I do what I do is because of these beliefs. And they're formed from our parents, from childhood experiences, from cultural and societal conditioning. Like we are profoundly influenced by the conclusions drawn from our past programming and experiences. That's where these things come from. Conclusions based off of our past programming and experience. What did I experience before? This is how I'm now acting. So your beliefs really, really shape your attitude and your values. They're like, you can think of them as like a filter, where it's like, this is how we respond to life's challenges through this filter, through what we believe, what our attitude is, and what we value. And these types of beliefs essentially they become limits to what we think we can achieve. Because I can only believe myself to get this far. I don't believe in getting past that. So it stops you. And having these types of beliefs is like, I'm competent. I can figure it out, right? I love that one. This is my favorite belief because I'll always say to myself, like, no matter what happens, I can figure it out. Like literally, no matter what happens, I can figure it out. Having a belief of like, I'm safe inside my body. No matter what I'm doing, I'm safe. And it's okay to change. That's a huge belief. These are types of beliefs that allow you to take on these difficulties, take on these hard things with confidence. Like, I am safe to change. It's okay for me to be different. I'm competent. I understand. I'm smart. I can figure it out. And then we have these other beliefs like, I don't trust myself. I always fail, right? No matter how many times I try to diet, I always fail. How things turn out is not in my control. There's nothing I can do about it. I went to the party, they had a bunch of food, there's nothing I can do about it. It's out of my control. Or no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, it's never good enough. Those are deep limiting beliefs. And those are beliefs that make us proceed hesitantly, make us fear making mistakes, make us fear criticism, make us be afraid to fail. Because if these beliefs are true, that I always fail, or things are out of my control, or I'm never good enough, if those are true, then us failing or us making a mistake is a pretty significant thing to our self-esteem. So we want to get away from these types of limiting beliefs and go more towards those beliefs of, hey, I can figure it out. No matter what happens, I can adjust to it. And when we think about our behaviors are a direct reflection on our beliefs, our perceptions and values that are generated, again, from these past learned experiences, these past learned programs. But the good news is that we can always reprogram our mind. And what we have to realize is that our mind is not the same thing as our brain. Right? I have this picture. You have your brain. That's not your mind. Your brain is your brain. Your mind is something different. Your brain is a central processing unit. And your mind is like the memory of the computer, right? When you have a computer, I'm not like super big into techie words, but you have a computer and you think of the central processing unit of the computer is like, that's your brain. That's like, okay, doing all the nitty gritty, doing all the details. And then you have your mind as like the memory of the computer, those kind of bigger layered things. And this comes from Bruce Lipton, he wrote the book Biology of Belief. Phenomenal book, like life-changing book. I swear, if you are interested, learn it. I listened to it by audiobook. Like, you don't have to read it. Just a phenomenal, amazing book that gives you a huge perspective of the subconscious mind. And he calls the subconscious like your habit mind. So your mind is energy. Your mind is this memory. Your mind is this habitual processing. Your brain is neurons. Your brain are cells. Your brain are chemicals. So that's the difference. Because when you think of your cell membrane, and this is a huge piece of science that Bruce Lipton basically pioneered, thinking of the cell membrane exactly like a computer chip. And we can change these programs by understanding this concept of the difference between our brain and our mind. So by age 7, what has happened to us is we have downloaded some subconscious programming. So we have learned from what we saw, by family, by society, by what was around us, by our environment. Again, these are things that we had no control of. These are things that we had absolutely zero control of. But by age 7, a lot of our subconscious programming has completely formed, right? There's this quote by like Saint Ignatius Loyola, and it says, "Give me a child till he is 7 years old and I will show you the man." Because essentially what science tells us and what history tells us is that from birth to 7 years old, you have learned all of the patterns and programs that you're going to habituate to. That's your foundation. So from that point on, everything that you've learned always comes back and reverts to those types of things. But obviously, some of these programs that we picked up during that time are not the best, right? If we're in a situation where like we never learned how to eat properly, or we never learned, or people around us weren't really taking care of their health, it's not to say anything bad about them or bad about the situation, but it's just we get to a certain point where like, hey, these programs that we once learned are not really impacting our health the way we want them to, and we don't want to continue to follow them. So like we really want to be changing them. And the biggest thing to this is that you cannot think your way out of a problem. Most people like try to be, okay, let me think this through. Let me work this through. It's like you cannot think your way out of this. Your brain is really, really smart. Your brain can always gain knowledge. You can always learn new things. You can always receive new information. Like, let me look at what's the best diet to follow, or what are these people saying? Like, which types of food should I be eating? Which types of things should I be doing? Like you can always read an article, read a blog, follow someone on Instagram. You can always learn that new information. And that's when we get in this space of like, hey, I know what I have to do, right? If you've ever said that before, I know what I have to do, but it's just getting myself to do it. What that means is you are a really smart person. You know what to do. You understand the information. Your brain is smart. You have gained that knowledge. But downloading new knowledge, learning new things, does not change our program in the subconscious. And that's a good thing for the most part, right? Like we don't want to be able to change these programs and these habits easily. When you learn to walk, you never have to relearn this. Again, as I said, under normal conditions. So you want that to be stuck in your subconscious. Like you don't want to have to wake up in a couple months and be like, oh shit, how do I walk again? Like, what is it? 1 foot? Is it left or right? Like which one it is? Like you don't want to be in that situation. So your subconscious, like, hey, these are the habits, like these are down pat. We don't have to think about them. And that's a really good thing. Your body's doing a good thing. But the issue comes when we're looking to change those negative types of programs that aren't helping us and aren't leading us to the health choices that we want them to be. So ways to reprogram is through types of hypnosis. So this is like one of the most vulnerable states. Like just as your subconscious mind is starting to go to sleep, your subconscious mind starts to take over. So if you put on headphones and you listen to even you repeating over and over again, like you can make a recording of like whatever type of belief that you want to change. Like, I don't trust myself. It's like you change that to like, I trust myself. I trust my body. I can find the way. I'm allowing myself to heal. I know I can heal. I know I can figure those things out. Like just make a recording of yourself and put some headphones on and listen to that as you go to sleep. Or you can download, I'll put in the course curriculum a program that I recorded that I have listened to in the past that I have used. You can use that as well, or even find something different. You can go online, go on Spotify. Like this podcast, Willow Ben Zen, is one of my favorites. She does amazing, phenomenal subconscious reprogramming work. And you use it as you go to sleep. I fall asleep like a baby every single time. She's awesome. Things like repetition too, saying to yourself over and over again. Over time, you'll start to believe it. These are things like when you do like how you have mantras, you have affirmations, you say them in the mirror, you say them in your head. I trust myself. I trust myself. I trust myself. I can figure it out. 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 And this takes a long time, but you have to say it over and over and over again. Or other things are like energy psychology modalities, where like these are really sort of advanced types of things like Psych-K, core health, doing like EFT tapping, breath work, EMDR. So these are types of therapeutic strategies that if you want to look into can be super game changing to actually elevating these subconscious limiting beliefs and actually confronting them and changing them. But what I would recommend is starting with the repetition, starting with the hypnosis first, and then diving into these more advanced types of strategies. But when we're talking to our subconscious mind, we have to think of the language, right? The language of our subconscious mind is not the language of your conscious mind. The subconscious is sensory based. And we have 5 senses. So we have visual, which is seeing, auditory, hearing, kinesthetic, which is feeling, gustatory, which is tasting, and olfactory, which is smelling. That's how the subconscious understands information. So if you're trying to say, hey, subconscious, I want to be happy, it's like, what? Like, what does happiness look like? What does happiness feel like? What does happiness sound like? You know, what is the environment that happiness is to you, right? You have to give your subconscious those types of details. Because what you have to do is translate these non-specific conscious goals into sensory-based language. So your subconscious can understand what you're trying to achieve. Saying something like, I want to be healthy is abstract, is non-specific. Your subconscious will take that literally and only go as far as it thinks it satisfies your criteria, right? It's like, okay, well, you want to be healthy. Well, like this is, what we've done before. Like sitting on the couch is how you felt happy before. So I guess I did the right thing, right? Like, do I get an A? Like what's going on? Like, that's the subconscious. Like, am I doing the right thing? Like, this is what, like, you've never told me anything different. So this is what I think that we're doing. Is this right? Right? You have to get much more sensory based when defining these types of goals. Telling your mind that hey, I don't want to be fat anymore. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be anxious, or I don't want to be sick is not the same as telling your mind what you do want. Mind, I want to feel happy. I want to feel calm. I want to feel confident. I want to feel health in my body, right? And you can think about how that feels. You can think about how that sounds to you. Like, what are other people saying to you? What are you saying to yourself when you're in this state of health, right? Those are things that you have to translate the conscious into the subconscious language, and that's the only way it will know. So again, visual. What if you think about your goal? If you think about what you want to do, I want to be healthy, I want to lose weight, I want to whatever it is. Thinking about your goal. This is how you shift it into sensory-based language. What's the visual? What will you see your life looking like when you're healthy? Give tangible examples. Do you see yourself on the bathroom scale looking down at your goal weight and be like, oh my God, this is awesome, right? Like, what does that visual look like? Do you see yourself fitting into a certain shirt and like, oh my God, this fits. This never used to fit before. This fits. This feels amazing. This looks amazing on my body. That's what I'm seeing. So now your subconscious visually understands what a healthy weight actually looks like for you. And then audio, what will you hear other people saying about you when you've accomplished that goal? What are you going to be saying to yourself? And what you can do is when you think about these things, you can start using them as quotes or personal mantras, right? Like, wow, I'm so proud of you, Erin. Like, you reached your goal. You are happy in your body. This is amazing. Other people are saying like, wow, like you look awesome. You look really healthy. I'm so proud of you. And those are things that you can use as quotes, personal mantras. You can repeat to yourself. You can say them in the mirror. You can say them over and over again for your subconscious brain to latch onto it. And then this kinesthetic, which is how are you going to feel when you've accomplished your goal? So this is way beyond just saying words. This is situations where you are actually thinking how internally this is going to feel in your body when you're at that state, when you have reached that goal. It is beyond just saying words. It's beyond just saying visuals. It is actually feeling inside of your body. Like, what area of your body does that feel like? And you can do this by doing like a mental skills exercise. So if you imagine a time in your past when you had a desired feeling such as like joy, right? And it doesn't have to be necessarily directly related to like health or weight loss. Like, if you've, not that I've ever experienced this before, but just an example of like, you gave birth to a kid, like you feel that intense, insane type of joy, right? It doesn't have to be, again, related to what goal you're trying to achieve. All you have to do is just remember that feeling and how it felt in your body, right? So what you're going to want to think about is how did that honestly feel in your body? And questions you can ask yourself, like, where in my body did I notice the greatest concentration, right? Was it my heart? Was it my stomach? Was it my head? Was it my eyes? Was it my lower body? Was it my pelvis? Was it kind of something that was radiating from below me to above me? What was it? My arms? Like, where in my body did I feel that sense? And you have to really think about it. And like, also, like, what color do you associate it with? You just close your eyes and think about, okay, like, when I feel this sense of joy, when I feel this experience, when I feel this desired feeling, what color do I see? Just close your eyes, and whatever color pops up, and it's like, that's the color. And what temperature, what shape, what texture. You can start getting nitty gritty and start getting like, what am I seeing? What am I imagining? What is going through my head when I think of this desired feeling, this experience that I had that gave me that feeling that I'm looking for in other areas of my life? What did it look like on all these different types of levels? And that's how you translate an abstract emotion into a tangible sensory-based description that your subconscious could be like, okay, I'm on board. I get it. I know what's happening, right? And now this brings us to the concept of healthtality. It's something I kind of coined. So healthtality is what I call an attitude of health. It is a working term. It's a play on words of Mamba mentality and health, and I kind of just combine them together. But what I describe this term as is really like the ideology of embodying a healthy way of acting. And because again, most people, and whenever you talk about behavior change, whenever you talk about losing weight, whenever you talk about any type of health, everyone's like, mindset, mindset, mindset. You have to change your mindset. You have to do this. You have to, change your mindset. Adopt this way of thinking. Adopt that way of thinking. Like, this is how you have to think, right? And they talk about those things without addressing like how you get to that point. Right. I don't know about you, but I've always been where it's like, hey, I know, like, my mindset is like, I know I have to eat healthy. I have a mindset I have to eat healthy, but how the hell do I do it? Like, how do I get there? Right. Like, I am aware of the mindset. I know I shouldn't be thinking this way. I know I shouldn't be doing that. I know I should have this mindset of like, hey, failure's not a big deal. Do whatever you want. Like, I know I should be having that mindset, but how do I get there? Right. And people just talk about, well, you just change your mindset. Like, just adopt a different mindset. Like, just do something, think this way. Just think that way. Just think, however I'm telling you to think. And it's like, okay, well, like, what? Like, I get it. I'm feeling you. I'm following you. But how do I get there? It just leaves us confused and like misdirected. And it's like, okay, I know that I should be thinking that way, but like, I don't. And how do I do it? Right. This is where healthtality comes into play. And I just use it because it's a catchy term. It's an easy word when you're trying to explain to others what you're doing, when you're trying to explain to yourself. You're saying, hey, I'm adopting a healthtality, right? Attitude of health. Because like, what are you trying to do? You are trying to adopt a healthy way of living. That's what you're trying to do. And how do we get to that point? Because our mentality is our underlying cause of actions. So this is the characteristic attitude of the way that we think. It's how you think, it's your energetic mode, it's sort of that, again, personality, that way that you do certain things that you do. And your mindset is an outward expression of those actions. It's how you live. It's your perceptions. It's your belief about life. So how we get to that mindset, and as I said, when people preach about mindset, like, they're not wrong. Mindset change is the ultimate goal. That's what we're looking to do. But in order to change our mindset, we have to adopt a mentality to get us there. That's the missing link. That's why we have these situations of, hey, I want to change. I know what I need to do to change. I just don't know how to do that. That's that gap. And that's exactly what this program is. And that's exactly what healthtality talks about. Because you have to have the desire to change, not the results. I love this. It's my favorite picture ever of Kobe Bryant. It's right after the 2008 NBA finals, and the Lakers lost to the Celtics, and you could see him walking off the court. Everyone around him is celebrating. The green and white confetti is falling from the ceiling, and he just has this look on his face. because it is not his mindset that ever motivated him to become as successful as he wanted to. When we are in the state of desiring the change rather than the results, because the action of doing things differently is what changes us. And this is super, super huge. So I'm going to repeat this. I'm going to dive deep into it. The action of doing things differently is what changes us. The results don't change us. So you losing weight does not change you. How you got there is what changes you. Right? Because we always have to think of the journey is what changes us. And if we try to skip that, then we're not really changing. We're not really any different. That's the example of if you worked really hard and built up a business and made a lot of money versus if you just won the lottery and somebody gave you that money, it's like, you don't know how to act, right? Because you're just saying, hey, I just got the results. You didn't get the change. So it's like, you're not really changed. You don't really spend that money wisely. You don't understand how to use that money. You don't understand how to have that money within you. You don't understand the boundaries of that money because you didn't actually change. You just received the results. And there's this ABC model which is basically a cognitive psychological process that allows you to assess and modify your attitude. Because again, as we said, healthtality, what we're trying to change, what gets us that place of changing our mindset is focusing on our attitude. Because most people think in this way. And activating event A causes us to feel and act a certain way. So let's just say we had a picnic with friends planned, and then all of a sudden it rained. And so rain ruins our planned picnic. C is that behavior, that consequence is, okay, all of a sudden now we feel sad, we feel upset, we feel pissed. And what we do is end up just staying home because it's raining outside. We watch TV, we end up going back and forth to the kitchen and we're snacking a lot, right? So essentially, the fact that it rained caused us to do that behavior. But in reality, what actually happens is an activating event happens, and our attitude is how we think, and the belief about the event that we have affects how we act and feel and what we do for a behavior. So in that prior situation, we had rain ruin your planned picnic with your friends. Your attitude, I'm so mad. I hate this. This is unfair. I'm pissed. This is stupid. What does that lead to? You feeling sad, you feeling upset, you staying home, you snacking, you just watching TV, and you're like, oh my God, I just ruined my whole diet. I just ruined everything. I just ruined all my progress. And it's not because it rained. The event did not cause the behavior. The attitude caused the behavior. But what if we switch that? What if we change up that middle ground? So again, rain still ruins your planned picnic, but now your attitude is like, that stinks. Too bad about the weather. But honestly, I've been looking for an opportunity to get in a workout because this week was actually pretty busy. So now I can either go to the gym or, do a workout at home. And what does that lead you to? What does that action or that attitude lead you to do as an action? Is like you're getting out of the house, you're getting in healthy movement. And then you end up making healthier food choices later in the day because you're like, hey, I feel good. I worked out. I feel great, And again, that happens because of that middle ground, that attitude, that belief, that limiting belief that you have in your mind. In a more advanced model is thinking about A, B, C, D, E, which kind of involves these cognitive traps that we tend to fall into. So you have like an activating event. An example is a person, or you travel a lot for work and you're rarely active during these work trips. Your belief, which is a destructive thought. It's like, I'll never stick with my workouts. It's just too hard. My travel schedule, it stinks. I just can't do it, right? That's your belief. That's your attitude. So the consequence is you feeling discouraged, you kind of give up, and you just like, hey, whatever, I'm not going to manage my weight. I'm just going to eat whatever I want. I'm going to do whatever I want, because why does it matter? But what if in that moment you had a disrupting thought to that belief, right? You have that destructive thought, because sometimes it just pops up. You're not going to ever make those go away completely. Sometimes they just pop up. But what if you had a disrupting thought before that? And this is more of the constructive thought process, and saying like, to like, say, I'll never stick with my workouts, it's just too hard, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, actually, that's not true. I'm physically active when I'm home, and I occasionally walk when I travel. If I can plan a little bit better, if I can prioritize, then honestly, I can be active everywhere and it doesn't have to look the same. And what does that lead to? That leads to an effective new philosophy that you have. It's like, hey, it won't always be easy to stick to my goals, but who said life was easy? I'd be better focusing less on obstacles and more on solutions. So now that's your new philosophy that you think about, and that changes all your behavior and all your consequences, and you actually get more activity in because you're thinking that way. And this is another super important concept when we think about change and what healthtality is for us. So healthtality, it's good to think about it as like almost like an alter ego and something that helps you stay the course. So when we embrace this healthtality, essentially what we're able to do is like separate in your mind almost as an alter ego. And you want every choice that you're faced up against, every kind of, limiting belief, everything that you're pushed up against, what you're thinking in your head is like, is my behavior in that's not supposed to say only, that's supposed to say in old mentality or a healthtality, right? Is it the old mentality or the healthtality? And which mindset will this lead to? The old mentality will lead to a mindset of disease and unhealthfulness. A new health mentality will lead to that mindset of, hey, I can change, I can do it, I can figure it out. So you can use this healthtality as more of like a tool to kind of guide you when you have these moments of uncertainty, when you feel a pull to fall back on these self-sabotaging behaviors. You can kind of ask these questions to yourself, like, is this an old mentality or is this a health mentality? And what mindset will this behavior get me to? If I do this thing, if I eat this bag of chips, if I do eat this bag of chips in this certain situation, right? Again, it's not the bag of chips that's the issue. It's how you're approaching it. It's how you're eating it. It's a whole environment around it. If I do this, which mindset is this going to lead me to? And this is how you stay the course. Because changing your body, changing your life is really hard. And some weeks you might not even see a change. But the key is you have to stay consistent. So this is how you can stay consistent, by using this framework of adopting this healthtality. And takes the pressure off your shoulders. It widens your structure. So it's not just like, oh, I have to be perfect, I have to do this. It's like, hey, no, this is just my philosophy. It like takes this pressure off of you, because now all you're doing is just thinking of, okay, is this a health mentality or is this old mentality? Like, which direction am I going in? It doesn't have to be this, like there doesn't have to be huge emotion attached to it. You're just simply asking yourself. You're just simply assessing the situation of like, which direction is this taking me? And so I'm going to leave you with this quote to think about for today. When you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person you walked in. That's what the storm is all about. I love this quote. And let me repeat that. That's what the storm is all about. That's what this journey is all about. That's what doing these things is all about. That's what's assessing our emotions, regulating our nervous system, thinking about grief, thinking about our subconscious, working on reprogramming that, changing our attitude. That's what this is about. We don't want to be the same person who walked in. We don't want to be the same person who started this program. We want to be different. That's what it's all about.